I'm Candy Evans. I'm so excited to be your host for Dallas Dirt. And today we have a guest who I've been dying to get on the show. Let me welcome Remington Reece to Dallas Dirt. He is now the marketing director for Ebby Halliday Companies, creative director for Ebby Halliday Companies. He comes to them with a background in marketing and advertising. He was at Dave Perry Miller for years, where he did genius things. One of the probably the strongest marketing house in town, I think, as far as brokers go. So welcome to Dallas Dirt.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Well, thank you so much for coming. And we're going to talk about marketing today. Do's and don'ts is what we'll start with. What do you tell agents, first-time agents or newbie agents, when you train them on marketing at Ebby Halliday Companies? What are the do's and don'ts?
From a marketing standpoint, don't compromise this idea of credibility through design. Don't compromise that in lieu of content. Don't overload whatever you're doing, whether it's print or digital, websites, business cards, whatever. The more that you compromise credibility through design, the less effective the piece is ultimately going to be. And I guess by credibility through design, I mean it's the most important ideal. If something looks competent and together and credible, then you really don't have to, beat the proverbial horse with commonplace turns of phrase or
you're talking about the writing.
And so yeah. Here's a good example.
Okay.
And if agents walking at home or watching at home, you guys can play along with this as well.
Okay.
One of my favorite exercises is with a big group of agents, if you ask them, describe yourself or your business in a couple of adjectives, and you give them a few minutes to, think and sit through that. Every single time, without fail, they all have the same 4 or 5 adjectives. They're all trustworthy, they're all hardworking, they're all good negotiators, and they all know the market.
Right.
And so...
like they're all best realtors.
Right. And so if you can achieve credibility through design, you don't need to dedicate space, content, messaging to try to convince people that you're trustworthy and hardworking. The analogy I would typically use there is it's like going to the grocery store and, you decide you want to make a cake and you need to buy flour. Do you want the flour box that says, use this flour and we'll create a soft, moist cake? Or do you want the one that, in all caps says, using this flour won't kill you? You shouldn't have to say that. You shouldn't have to try to convince anybody that you're trustworthy, especially as a real estate agent. That should be achieved right out of the gate.
So are you saying do that through words?
It's words, it's layout, it's design.
Photos?
Yes, headshots, photos. It's truly all-encompassing. And I think if it is actually achieved, it's greater than the sum of its parts.
Okay.
And I think really that's one of the keys to branding in general. Real brands, true brands are inherently greater than the sum of their parts. And so that kind of philosophy or mindset right out of the gate is what I try to instill in the agents in our company, because if you can achieve that, it doesn't matter if you're, 30 days into the business or 30 years into the business, you're going to present yourself as a competent, trustworthy, hardworking agent right from the
get-go. Exactly. I think we both know Dave Perry Miller, who is his name is on the door of the company.
Yep.
And one of the, Dave was an agent, and I'm dying to get him on the show, by the way, the next time he comes to Dallas.
He'd be a great guest.
Oh, yeah. He's one of my favorite people in the world. And, he was an agent, and he was a different brokerage. And, he practiced that. I mean, he was so genuine. And he wasn't even born in Dallas, and yet he became one of the most successful agents in Dallas, and that so much that his name is on the door of a company that's owned by Berkshire Hathaway.
Yep.
I mean, it's amazing to me. And I watched him with his marketing and how genuine is another word that comes to mind, I think. If you have a genuine product and you really believe in it, then you don't have to prove yourself, right?
Totally.
Exactly.
Totally.
And that's you. So are there some agents in town who kind of practice this? And They can be in Ebby or Dave Miller or anyone else.
I think for the most part, the upper echelon of agents, the top producing agents, really at Dave Miller Real Estate, Ebby Halliday Companies, or even otherwise, they are achieving this and they are doing it well, because to some extent they have to be. But locally, one group that is relatively new to Dave Miller Real Estate, but not the industry in general, it's the Avers Real Estate Group.
Okay.
And they were, they used to do a lot of stuff in Las Colinas, and they work with a lot of developers and builders around in the Dallas area now. But they do a really, really good job of marrying their own personal brand with the Dave Miller Real Estate brand, and kind of keeping it cohesive and consistent and approachable and genuine and human, which I think is an integral part to marketing these days. Perry Miller Strife Group, Ryan Strife, that's a no-brainer. Very, very strong, tremendous success, especially in the last few years. Brand is everything to them. It is first and foremost. And I think that you can really see that manifest in all of their marketing. That's the priority, as it should be.
Yes, to the brand. When you talk about marketing, these beautiful things that we cherish so much, what are some of the most unusual techniques that you've seen?
Unusual. I think I'll pivot that slightly. Instead of unusual, how about out of the box? Does that work?
That's the better wording.
One of my favorite campaigns that Dave Miller Real Estate ever did. A couple of years ago, we had this opportunity to take out quite a few what I would call large format signage, about 4 feet wide, 8 to 10 feet tall. These giant boards that we were able to display in North Park Center. Right, if I remember correctly, like right outside the Apple Store. So, just a prime walkway for foot traffic. We had 4 or 5 of them all in a row, and one side was everything from tips to sell your home for the spring, like how to prepare it, as well as kind of how the general real estate process works at various price points. And then the other side were, giant, beautiful photos of, for the most part, the interiors of high-end luxury homes. And so it had on
house porn. It was house porn.
Yes, very, very much so, house porn. But one side was informational, was content-based, but then the other side had this really nice kind of interactive element where this may make me sound a little bit creepy ultimately, or stalker-esque. Right? Right after they were installed, I took my fiance at the time, now wife, and we just kind of camped out in North Park and just watched people interact with the boards and engage with them.
I love it.
A ton of people, taking selfies or having their photos
in front of the houses.
In front of the house photos. And then this is a story, but this is in my mind the greatest compliment that the Dave Miller Real Estate brand has ever been paid. So Jeff Bezos has this, great quote. I'm going to paraphrase, but essentially it's, your brand is what people say when you're not in the room, what they say about you when you're not in the room.
Yeah.
And so while I was sitting there, just camped out, I'll say camped out instead of creeping around. But while I was there, I overheard a conversation, and it was a younger guy kind of walking with his parents, I assume, through the mall. It was right around, there was, I got the impression he went to SMU, and it was his parents coming in to visit him.
So he was a young adult.
But yeah. Probably mid, early 20s, something like that, if I had to guess. But they walked by the exhibit that we had set up, and the parents said, "Oh, what's Dave Miller Real Estate?" And the young guy said something like, "There's some, big deal real estate brokerage in town. They do a lot of luxury stuff," or something like that. And then they, kind of took a photo with it and walked away. But I was sitting there and literally turned to my wife and said, "Oh my God, we did it. That's the goal. That's what you want."
Yeah. The man, what we in TV news used to call the man on the street interview.
Yeah.
And that's what you were saying, is the man on the street just said they're the biggest deal in town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
and that was even before they saw this exhibit. I mean, it's because you branded it into
and
the
that,
air here.
Yeah. And that brought it home for me and kind of took it full circle where I was like, oh man, I must be doing something. We're doing something right here.
Yeah.
And so truly, I look back at that, and it sounds so silly, but in my mind, that's the single greatest compliment I've ever gotten professionally, and the brand's ever gotten, as far as I'm aware.
Well,
that's the one I take.
How did you get this? Because that's brilliant. I know that spot very well since I know the Apple store. It's right outside of Nordstrom's. And then they also have like a little across the street and up is Lush. Do I know North Park well? Yes. And there's like a little flower exhibit or something there. So did you work this out with North Park?
We happened to have an in with their marketing director at the time, and they kind of pitched an opportunity, and we took it and ran with it, and it went through several different iterations. But I mean, this is kind of one of the keys to success in marketing is when you get opportunities like this,
you
have to capitalize.
Yeah.
And truly, we were pitched, it made sense. And I called up the CFO at the time, Ron Berger, and said, Ron, we need X amount.
We need to grab this. I mean, because it costs, obviously. Yeah.
It was expensive, but well worth it.
I love what you said is that, and we should put this in gold, in print somehow. You never in marketing, don't ever miss a marketing opportunity. Don't let it slide by you. Grab it, even if you're not sure that it's right. Try it. Right.
It's one of the best pieces of advice I ever got. Was I had the opportunity years ago to speak at How Design Live in Chicago, which is not real estate conference, but design creative conference. And I, listened to this seminar on, I guess creative management is probably the best way to describe it. But one of the points the speaker was making was basically every year, 10% of your budget should be experimental. You should be taking that and, not necessarily dipping your toe in, but, making a concentrated effort to commit to something, even just to try it. And in the back of your mind, if it fails or it's not successful or doesn't meet XYZ goal that you try to establish, it doesn't necessarily matter because you're at least trying to push the envelope. Mm-hmm. And more often than not, even if the kind of big picture wasn't successful, you'll find something within that worked. And then next year, next quarter, next month, you can take that and run.
Fascinating information, but are there any do's and don'ts? And I really want to focus on the don'ts now for agents when they come into marketing.
I think one of the larger mistakes that I see, especially new agents make, is, in my opinion, it's better to send something out that is ultimately a B plus or an A minus than never send something out because you can't get it to what you think is the A plus level. Mm-hmm. I mean, and especially in terms of, direct mail or something like that, where you're casting a huge net and hoping to get a couple bites from whomever you're sending them out to. Fear, up in the marketing department, we call it FOSO, fear of sending out. And fortunately, it happens relatively rare, and we're there to, you kind of provide that nudge and get them over the edge a little bit.
Talk through it.
But it's ultimately a colossal waste of your time, your emotional energy, to spend all this time getting something together and then not send it out because you're afraid it's not perfect.
Well, and that's we have that. We writers have that problem.
Yep. It's the creative curse.
Yes, it is a creative curse. I will go, oh my God, I can't finish this because it's not perfect. And thank God I have wonderful editors like Shelby and Joe, which is just put it out there. It's fine. We'll take care of it. Just do it, But yeah, so you talk them through that because they're probably nervous and they think it's got their brand on it, their name on it. It has to be perfect.
Yep.
And that's tough. So that's one mistake. Are there any places where you see agents wasting resources?
Um, print print is always kind of a hot topic whenever that question in particular comes up.
Yes.
And I've got some polarizing opinions, I would say, on that in general. I don't think print is fully dead, but I think it's changing, and how we look at it as real estate marketers in particular needs to change, where I have a very hard time believing that you release at the broker level, and everybody does this, it'll be a full page in some print publication with a bunch of active listings.
Right.
I don't think, granted, I say this, but I'm sure this has happened in some capacity, but it's rare. It has to be that, somebody flips through the newspaper or some high-end print magazine or glossy, as it's called sometimes, and they're scrolling through and, oh, here's a day paranormal real estate ad. Here's a $5 million property. Yes, I like that. Let me call that agent right now. Hey, I want to see it. I want to buy it. I think what would be a better use of your marketing dollars from a print standpoint is to really use it exclusively in a proof of success capacity.
So showing the agent.
Yes, showing solds, showing successes, showing pendings, because I do think it's within the realm of possibility for somebody to flip through a magazine and think, and see, oh, 123 Main Street, it was sold by, John Smith. Well, I live at 125 Main Street. I bet John could sell mine.
That
I'm
might
going to save that.
That may happen.
I'm gonna,
right.
Give him a call and see what the deal with that one is. I do think that that's possible, and I do think that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea of, using your marketing dollars to showcase active listings in print only makes sense if it's in a larger kind of branding strategy to start associating yourself with these higher end listings. Beyond that, I don't think it's effective. I don't think people find homes like that in this day and age.
They don't. And in other words, it's use it to show your prowess as an agent or as a team, but don't use it because also things move so quickly. By the time the print comes out, the home can be sold.
And that's one of our more consistent nightmares on an ongoing basis.
Oh, yeah. And then
that happens all the time.
Right. And you've wasted your money on it. So completely, I agree. And I tell agents that all the time. On the other hand, I think sellers, especially sophisticated sellers, they don't want their realtor to necessarily be a movie star. They just want their house sold for the most money.
Right.
Bottom line, how can you get me the most money? So what you're saying is, if you can show that, then use print for that.
Well, I think at the end of the day, in its most reductive sense, like every single real estate marketing message boils down to, I can sell your home faster and for more money than the competition.
Everyone else, right.
Whatever that looks like.
Right.
And so if you kind of approach your own marketing strategy with that in the back of your mind, it becomes a lot easier to differentiate yourself. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying originally with the whole credibility through design thing. If you're having to spend money to articulate that you're trustworthy, you've inherently failed right out of the gate.
Exactly. And also agents spend their own money on marketing, so that whatever they get in that huge commission, they have to spend a portion of that on marketing.
A lot of people either don't realize that or can't fully process that. And then they dive into the business, especially in the last couple of years.
Yes, but that was so. All the TV shows showed how easy it was. Now, how much does the broker help? The broker helps somewhat. They match some funds. Is that just kind of dependent on the broker?
It depends on the brokerage. All of the brands under Ebby Halliday Companies, Day Paranormal Real Estate, Ebby Halliday itself, and Williams True over at Fort Worth, we do a very, very good job of matching funds, of contributing a lot of it in a 50-50 capacity. And at the end of the day, that's an important component, at least on my end. There's a saying, happy chickens lay eggs, and I mean, it's extremely applicable to real estate. The happier and more confident the agents are, the more likely they are to sell and be successful at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so in my experience or opinion, at least, very rarely on my end is it worth kind of nickel and diming over, we're not going to give you, some very nominal sum, sub $1,000 or something. Ooh, we're not going to give you that because, we're unsure on the ROI or something like that. That's a waste of time. And I mean, really, as far as ROI is concerned in real estate, it's very rarely is it ever possible to actually determine what that is.
Right. Right.
And it all kind of boils down to, just from a big picture marketing strategy, the wider net you can cast, and then you see what's working, and then you capitalize on what's working.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way to go about it. There's really not a one size fits all solution answer
to marketing. Oh, fascinating. This has been really our most fascinating, I think, podcast to date. I'm fascinated by this. I mean, because I just eat and drink marketing. I mean, it fascinates me in all aspects of life, but especially real estate. And I want to thank you so much for joining us, and we want to have you back.
No, I would love to come back. At times I can be quite shy or reserved. I've been called stoic before.
Oh.
But as soon as I get a microphone in front of my face, I can wax poetic with the best of them. So I would love to come back.
We'd love it. And we're going to get Dave over here to put him in the hot seat. It'll be wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Dallas Dirt. We'll see you next time.
That does it for this episode of Dallas Dirt. Join us the next time as we dig into DFW's hottest real estate news with host Candy Evans. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube to receive every new episode. And if you like the episode, give it 5 stars and tell a friend. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to seeing you the next time. This episode was recorded at the Real News Communications Network studios in Dallas and is copyrighted by Dallas Dirt.